Hi guys, it's Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft. Alright, if you've been following my channel, you remember over a year ago I did a video series called The Practical Field Guide to the Cap and Ball Revolver or the Percussion Revolver, or something like that. I'm going to take those down. I bogged down way too much in history, and I got away from the topic I really wanted to deal with, which was their use in modern day in the field today. So, this is a redo. If you've already seen that video, maybe you want to skip this one in the next couple. On the other hand, if it was interesting, give me another chance and let me spin it better for you. Alright, when I'm talking about a percussion revolver, I'm talking about the revolvers that were made originally in the 1850s, 60s, 70s, in some cases even the 80s, some cases even the 40s. And these were revolvers that laid the foundation for what we know today as the practical handgun for military and civilian application. We fought the Civil War with them, and they were very prevalent in the Western expansion all the way up into the 1900s and beyond. So, cartridge revolvers today are, yes, more practical and in many ways more evolved. After 100 plus years, 150 years, I would expect them to be more evolved. And for that reason, you can't compare these guns to the original guns to the modern gun and say it's necessarily better. But it is not in any way a hindrance. And if you're a history buff like me and you enjoy leather holsters and bowie knives and stag handles and stuff like that, then you'll probably enjoy this type of gun. And it might be something you've wanted to take a look at. So, having said that, let us begin. There are 5 distinct power levels to a percussion revolver. First one is all the 31 calibers, and they were used for personal defense, up close, very personal. Now, by today's standards, we don't consider them very dangerous, but in the day they were, because let me put it in modern setting. If I had one of these little bitty revolvers and I loaded it with a radioactive bullet, that if I even scratched you with it, more or less hit you with it, in a week you'd die horribly of radiation sickness. You would be afraid of me popping you off with that gun. That's the way it was. There was no penicillin, there was no antibiotics. So any kind of wound from one of these guns was probably going to be fatal. Not always, but most of the time it was going to be extreme painful, long duration, and probably fatal. So they were more effective in the small calibers than we think today. Today we think of the instant kill. Those days it was if he died in a week, it still counted. So the 31 calibers, in modern terms, think of a 22. Anything a 22 long rifle revolver can do, one of these 31s can do as well. The next step up is called the pocket guns, and these were the Pocket Navy and Pocket Police. They were 36 caliber, built on the small frame, and you can see pictures of those, but they generated more power. Think today like a 22 Magnum, or like even up to perhaps a 380, somewhere in there, okay? Then came the belt guns, and this is where the guns really got practical for military application. The first was the 51 Navy. Wild Bill Hickok carried a brace of them. That's what he became famous for as a lawman, was using those cap and ball revolvers. The power level is similar to a 38 Special in weight, speed, power. So think 38 Special. The 44 calibers, 1860 Army, 1858 Remington. Think of these in the 45 ACP standpoint, because that's actually the grandchild of these, is the 45 ACP. 451 diameter conical ball of around 200 grains at this time, moving at about 900 feet per second. That's a 45 ACP load. So think of this like a 1911 in performance. Then finally you come to the Walkers, the Dragoons. These are big, massive pistols. If you ever saw the movie Outlaw Josie Wales, he's using a pair of Walkers. And those guns weighed 3.5 to 4.5 pounds each. It was meant to be carried on a saddle, not on the belt. And it was an early gun meant to give a soldier firepower in the days of single shot. So he would have 6 quick firings instead of a single shot rifle that were powerful enough to bring down a horse or bring down a man with one hit. Even in today's standards, the Walkers and Dragoons command respect. And in power wise, you have to have the name Magnum after the name to beat it. Like 357 Magnum, 44 Magnum, any of the others is not as powerful as a Walker. Saw a demonstration quite a few years ago where they were head-to-head comparing a 44 Magnum with a lead bullet off-the-shelf load versus a Colt Walker, and the Walker was out penetrating it. Yes, the 44 made much bigger wound cavity and all like that. Again, with 100 years of evolution, I would expect it. But it is nothing to be taken lightly. So, today, how can these guns be used in the field? Well, they can actually be very practical. When I started out, this was the very first cap and ball handgun I ever had. And I'll give you a close-up in a minute. This was a Griswold & Gunnison copy, clone, whatever you want to call it, in .44 caliber that Navy Arms produced that I bought in 1976 in a kit form. This gun taught me a great deal about how practical these things were in the field. But back in that day, the guns were really made to be more like noisemakers than real revolvers, because these guns really came back into fruition because of the centennials of the Civil War and etc. And so reenactors around the country were using them as part of reenactments, and the vast majority of these were being fired with blanks. So they were manufactured, but not necessarily correctly. And how I mean is, the way that they did it, the rifling was too shallow, the modern rifling instead of progressive, all these little things, and it made for a gun that was not that accurate. Now, with a great deal of work and a great deal of practice, you could get fairly good with it. I've got, with this one in its heyday, where I could easily keep it on a rabbit target out to about 20 yards. Anything smaller than that, I needed to be a lot closer, like 10 yards out, to be able to guarantee I was going to hit it. A snake, definitely within 5 to 7 yards. Now, the modern guns today, like this 58 Remington, are benefiting from cowboy action shooting. Today they come much, much higher quality. The rifling in them is much more correct for the time and for the bullets. And since today you can get drop-in cylinders for this, so that you can turn this gun very quickly into a 45 long Colt cartridge gun just by changing out this cylinder. The guns come basically prepared to be 45 long Colts, and so they're much stronger, they're much more durable, and much more accurate out of the box. Because in cowboy action shooting, if you can't hit target, why buy it? So today these guns are on par, if not superior, to the original guns in accuracy. What kind of accuracy are we talking about? We're going to get into that in the later episodes. This is just a quick overview. I would expect with my gun that I have practiced with, I feel confident with, and etc., I should easily be able to harvest a rabbit out to 25 yards. I should easily be able to keep it onto a coyote out to 50 yards. I should easily be able to keep it onto a man target out to 75 yards with a fixed-sided gun. And I will demonstrate what I'm talking about. The smaller, the closer it needs to be, which is true with any fixed-sided service-type gun. Quite often when you get these dialed in, they'll beat a lot of automatics, like 40s and 45s, and I've won drinking money more than once where we put up a little bitty target out there and let them shoot at it with their 45, their 9, or their 40, and I'd outshoot them with a black powder revolver. But I got 30 years experience. So, to recap, these guns can be very, very practical. The power is more than adequate for standard field use. How we load them, how we carry them, and how we apply them is the thing. These can be very practical sidearms for us to use as carry-alongs. I've worn mine and regularly wear mine in the field as my carry weapon, And why carry them? There are times when a long gun is just awkward, like when I'm going to be in a canoe or I'm doing other things where I want my hands free and I don't want to have to carry a long gun slung on my shoulder or whatever. especially like down here in the south where we got a lot of snakes. And therefore being able to pull it out and dispatch a serpent that's a problem is very handy. Also, in my life, with this very gun right here, I have killed rabid dogs that I was on a camping trip on a river fishing and heard a noise and looked up on a bank, and there was basically a pit bull that had gone rabid at 10 feet. Yeah, I was glad for 44's stopping power that day. And I was glad I had something on my hip instead of being back at camp. So, how you apply them, how you load them, you're the variable of how effective these guns are. And if you're interested, I'll be glad to share my knowledge with you. In the next episode, we'll get into how to load them, how to clean them, and all that stuff, and then we're going to the range and we're going to show you the accuracy potential of it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Blackie for Shaman's Forge Bushcraft, wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guys.